Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Stool podcast, a podcast for woodworkers and the maker community in general. This is episode number 29. My name is Robin Lewis from robinlewismakes.com. I'm joined by Joey Chalk from King Post Timberworks.
Hello.
And John Crawford from Periodic Furniture Studio.
Hello.
We live stream the recording on YouTube every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, or UTC plus 10, or you can watch or listen to it later on YouTube, iTunes, or SoundCloud. I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. We'll get to your comments towards the end of the show, but feel free to chat amongst yourselves. The idea being that this is also a place for people to meet. So we've got a couple of announcements this week. The first one, just from myself, I just want to say a very big thank you to Joey and John for running the show last week. If you didn't catch it, I wasn't here.
Not so much of a show as a train wreck, but yeah.
It was good to watch unfold.
So they steered the ship, as you guys said at the end, which was pretty cool. And the reason that they were doing that was because I was in hospital. My wife was giving birth to our first child, a little girl by the name of Mackenzie. I'm super excited. I've now been a dad for almost a week, and so far it's the coolest thing, raddest thing ever.
You're nailing it.
Yeah, don't know about nailing it. I might be a little behind and a little bit slow tonight, just from lack of sleep, but it's definitely worth it.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, so let's get started with what we're doing this week. I saw a very colorful box on your Instagram, Joe.
Yes, I made my son's, he just had his third birthday. So I made him a Lego PlayStation kind of general toy box thing. Just uploaded the video like, I don't know, 2 hours ago. So cool. Go check it out. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I had ties into the topic probably quite well. I had some real issues with spray paint with it, and maybe we could talk about it a bit later. But I thought, bright colors is going to be the best, most efficient thing to do is to buy a few spray cans and spray it up. And I have got some experience with bright colors, especially like yellows and reds, which are generally really hard to cover. But the paint just blistered and peeled away and just awful. Like, it was good up until my final coat. I'd sanded between coats, and final coat went on, and then it just peeled back to like under the primer. Like, it's really odd.
Jeez.
What was it? Was it an acrylic or
like a proper smelly lacquer stuff?
Oh, right. So
real deal stuff.
Crap.
And I probably spent $80 on spray cans. And so
workshop must have stunk.
I did it all outside, which was half the problem because
what's your neighbor's car look like?
No, it's just dry time at the moment. It's so cold here that it was literally like one coat a day, and so that was just killing the timeline, which is why I was a day late giving it to him. So I ended up having to just go and sand it back and buy acrylic paint and roll it on, which actually worked really good. So
I must say that finish was amazing. I looked at the colors and I just thought it looked so professional, and I immediately assumed it had to have been spray. That's the only way you can get that.
Yeah. No, I was really happy with. I should have just gone for what I knew that works. And especially with bright colors and a good like thick paint, I think you can do a lot. So that works. He's happy. It's pretty cool. So I had this inspiration over the weekend to make a coffee table, or an idea for like a range of furniture, I suppose, that's really minimal and kind of tied together with glass or maybe perspex. So I drew up it's a very geometric shaped kind of thing. Anyway, I'm filming it, and I thought this is going to be really easy. I'll glue up these bits. I had to make a couple of jigs, and then I can just spit out these coffee tables, easy as. Well, it turns out that the glue up, just didn't work. Nothing worked.
The glue was just like, nope, not today.
Like I knew it would be a bit difficult, and I thought I'll figure it out when I get there. I mean, surely I can figure out a way to glue 2 bits of wood together. Sure, they're at a bit of a weird angle, but it'll be right.
So you mean like just the it's not the glue didn't set. You mean like just
No,
mechanically they didn't go
couldn't
together?
get the clamping.
couldn't get it to work. So I got halfway through the first. There's in kind of 2 units. This thing. There's a sneak preview of it on my Instagram, but I'm a bit reluctant to show the whole thing just yet because I want to perfect the design. But so yeah, I got halfway through the first glue up, and this is a disaster. But carried on, and then decided I'll just put the other one together, and then I've got a pair of shit ones. And they are terrible, but it gives me like a good 3-dimensional view of what it's going to look like, and I really like the look of it, and I think it's going to be a very cool thing. I now just need to find some time to actually build it better and work out how to do it. It's really complicated geometry, compound miters and stuff, and there's just no way to get it clamped. And I think the problem mainly is I was dominoing it, and anyone who's used a domino to join a miter knows that the pressure's got to come on like a 45-degree angle to the join. Is that right, Jordan? Something like that. And so when you are joining a compound angle with the domino, there's nowhere to put a clamp.
So when you say from the domino, because the domino is going into the cut mitered face, right?
Yeah. So the pieces come together, how you say, on a weird angle.
And then I know what Mac Ramona does for the clamping is he cuts the extra block and then glues it. He glues it to it and then
I suppose I'm not sure if that would work in this case because the angles are so obtuse that the pressure is just pulling the joint apart. I'm just together. So.
I'm just going back to have a look at it on Instagram because I'm pretty sure I saw it not too long ago, and it was at a dark like a walnut, super sharp angle. Yeah, I saw that.
So that one, that was the easy glue up. I made it in 3 sections, and the next part of that glue up just went haywire. But anyway, I think it's going to be a cool idea. So I want to carry on seeing if I can make it work. Anything else? What have I done? I've been making a set of stairs out of plywood, which is interesting. We CNC'd a whole 3.5, 4 sheets of plywood into a whole lot of zigzags, and there was a minor fail there where we CNC'd a lot of part A and not much of part B, so had to do a bit of quick thinking and anyway worked out how to do it. So I'm essentially making it's like a floating staircase kind of up to a loft bed. So there's no stringers. It's just the shape of the stairs up and across and up and across.
So what is the shape? Because in my mind, I thought you were going to say it's just you just cut a whole bunch of stringers and then glue them together and that's your stairs.
Well, essentially is a whole lot of stringers, but they're the shape of the stairs, not the shape of a traditional stringer, which would be a straight line. So essentially, we've just made glue lam plywood stairs, kind of. Anyway, that may be in a video. It's becoming very difficult to film because it's quite a massive project. So I'm not sure how to go about filming the rest of it.
That sounds really interesting, though. And then to support it on the wall, how are you?
Well, it's going up to a loft bed, which I'm making, and so the beam that's going to hold the bed to the wall will also kind of hold the stairs up at the same time.
So there's no support halfway up the stairs?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's why it's all out of plywood. So essentially, it's a glue lam beam that is the shape of stairs.
So how thick does the lamination end up being? Or is it the entire thing the same thickness?
That was the original plan, and it was going to have to be 33 pieces of 18mm ply wide.
So it wouldn't have treads. It would be kind of built into it.
Built in.
Yeah.
But then it was getting really heavy. That was looking at 7 sheets of plywood, and it's I don't think I can lift 7 sheets of plywood.
It'll hold a person, but we won't be able to get it up. Yeah.
So we've halved that and had some gaps between the plywood members.
Right.
So it's, and then I'm going to actually skin it with some thin MDF. So the part you're actually going to stand on will be some probably 5 mil MDF or something like that.
Oh, isn't that just covering up the coolest part of it though?
Yeah, but that's not what they want.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Sorry, I thought you were doing this as like a more of a
no, this is a job.
project.
Like it's actually funny enough. The whole job's is meant to be more like a French antique distressed thing. So the rest of the loft bed is going to have moldings and turned posts and all sorts of fancy stuff. But the stairwell, we needed to make it look very slim and minimal, just so it didn't encroach on other things in the room. So it's going to be quite a bit of a juxtaposition of style there. But yeah,
I was in my head. I was just seeing, a wide thing of plywood, or the end grain of all the plywood there, because that would look amazing.
I'll get a picture on Instagram tomorrow morning, I think.
Sweet.
That's me.
All right. First of all, Joey is got balloons. Is that because you're celebrating?
Saw that.
Robin?
Yeah, man, we're still celebrating my wee man's birthday. We decided we'll just leave the balloons up until they pop.
When was his actual birthday?
The 5th.
Okay, it's just a couple of days ago.
Yeah. When was your daughter born?
First of June. It's a real hard one to forget.
Yeah, I'm never going to remember that.
Right in the middle of the year. Yeah.
Cool. All right, that's my turn now, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, so continuing on from last week, still doing that bookcase, the pigeonhole bookcase thing, and it's all but done. I'm just installing the shelf pins, and then it's into the finishing room tomorrow, which means I do miss the delivery of the 8th by 1 day, but I did miss out on 2 days of work, so it's all good, and the client doesn't care. They're more than happy to wait. So that should be wrapped up tomorrow, and I can get some photos out on Instagram and start editing a video for once to put out on my periodic.
We do that from time to time as creators.
I know. It feels like it's been forever since I've put one out on periodic furniture, but I'm enjoying this project, but I do hate making bookcases out of solid wood because the amount of glue ups that is involved is just torture.
Yeah.
But it's looking great and it's looking cool. On top of that, we've got I'm doing a charity auction for a Fremantle Foundation. So I've just started kind of coming up with a few concepts and designs for that. It's not due until I think it's August. But I just want to get a start on it and, put it in the display room until the auction is here. And that's going to be cool. I'm thinking I've got 2 ideas. One's round and one's square. Well, rectangular, and it looks all right. So there's that. I've had another commission come through, or deposits come through.
Oh, cool.
So I'm just starting prep on that. This is a sound engineer, so he wants a recording studio desk for his home studio, and
that'll be nice.
I'm really excited for it, actually. So it's got that kind of U-shaped desk to it, and then it has all the racks built in, and it's going to be stepped with monitors and big tray for his MIDI keyboard, and it's going to be really nice. Hopefully we can get it to a reasonable price. We obviously have a budget that we already have discussed, but I'm just hoping to be able to build it to his budget and to the kind of quality that he's looking for. So I'm thinking we probably will use veneered plywood for the tops, just to one for budget and also for the stability, because his actual apartment is upstairs. It has to be kind of flat packed because there's no lift to bring it up.
Yeah, otherwise you're just going to have the same problem as you do now, where the budget's going to be spent and you're gluing up pieces of wood anyway.
Exactly. So it's going to cost a tiny bit more materials, but it's going to save him probably 3-4 days of labor. So in the long run, it will still save a little bit of money on the build. But that's just going to be that cool design. Hasn't been a huge amount actually making this week, but as Leroy has asked in the live chat here, I was going to
ask about that.
But I know that you guys know, as in Joey and Robin, know that George Woodshop was kind of a dead channel. I decided to just move away and focus on periodic furniture being a business channel. But I've decided, because I've got these lathes and I've got a few restoration projects on the go, I want to restore my thicknesser, I want to restore my jointer, just to get all of the cardboard shims out of it and make it looking like new. I kind of decided that these are cool projects to kind of document, but they definitely don't match periodic furniture. They don't match George's wood shop because it's got nothing to do with wood. It's going to be more metal and 3D printing and, you know, fabrication stuff than anything. I thought, instead of, you know, having a name that contradicts the content I'm putting out, I'd change it to Maker Addiction, and that way it's more relevant to the content that's coming out. It also will be easier to encourage collaborations because it's, you know, all things making. And basically, George's Woodshop is dead. People stopped watching it.
Well, good luck trying to lose the name, because it's stuck.
It's stuck, yeah. But basically, it's just, I hate that name now, and I want it out of my life. So that's the biggest reason for the rebrand. But yeah, I don't know.
I saw your video pop up, and I was like, what's this Maker Addiction? I was so close to writing you an email to say, hey, someone scammed your...
Been hacked.
Someone's hacked it.
And the thing is, I didn't want to start any of this until Facebook let me change my Facebook name, right? I wanted to do an announcement video on the day that I change it. But Facebook, I go on to Facebook to change my name, application, and all that. And I say, oh, it doesn't meet our guidelines. It's misleading to what you're creating.
What?
And so I appeal it and say, well, it's not misleading because all I do is make and blah, blah, blah. And they came back saying, well, you have to have supporting documents to prove that it's not going to be misleading. So I've changed the YouTube channel before the Facebook page can be done. I did an announcement on my Facebook wall to announce it. And I've also sent them the fact that look up georgewoodshop.com. It doesn't exist anymore. It's dead. So hopefully they come back saying, yes, we will approve this name change.
I didn't realize they make you jump through so many hoops. I thought it would have just been a case of you can or you can't. Not you can, but we need you to dance, monkey.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like, I own this bloody thing. It's mine. And I can't even change the name because you think it's misleading.
Yeah.
Delete.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I'm done. I hate Facebook.
I don't think Facebook's going to be around for too much longer.
Yeah, I think it's dying.
Everyone seems to be leaving it these days.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm really ready. But yeah, no, that's me. What have you been up to, Dad?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing this week was becoming a dad. So not too much going on in and around the shop because, Thursday and Friday I was in hospital, and then after Friday I've been daddy daycare.
Yep.
So, but what I have done is just small jobs around the bathroom. So last week I finished all of the tiling. So it was so nice to be able to take all my trowels and adhesive downstairs and just put it away because I'm so sick of tiling now. So all the tiling's done. The new toilet got installed. Yesterday I hung the toilet door. Today I put up the roller blind, started working on the vanity top. So it's just all those sort of small rounding up things. Everything's working in there. It's all functional. But now it's just all of those details and then eventually onto paint. So no filming or anything this week, unfortunately. But what I did,
slack.
what I have been working on this week, actually, a bit off topic, but a company contacted me because they'd seen my YouTube channel and they are in partnership with a big company. And I'm not going to say who it is, but they're in partnership with a big company and they want me to do an unboxing and a review and a use of this thing so that they can use it in a media campaign. So it's not going to be on my channel, but they basically they've got a few people together and they want us to be a face of this campaign, which is
that's pretty cool.
Is it? Can you say, is it Australian only or international?
So it's the company's worldwide, but it's been launched around the rest of the world.
Right.
and it's coming to Australia.
Okay, cool.
It's one of these portable razors, and
Yep.
obviously with the beard and everything, it works because I've got to do a review where I actually, or a video where I actually use it. So that's where it works.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's been pretty cool. It's a bit of filming, but just not making or
Yeah.
woodworking. Yeah.
Awesome. That's cool.
So yeah, that's been about my week, and yeah. All right. Well, tonight we're going to talk about something that people have been asking us over and over again by way of questions. Things like, how do you finish this, or how do you guys use polyurethane? And we keep saying we're not going to do it now. We're not going to answer the question. We're going to do a topic on it. So tonight is the night. And I think what we might do as well, if we, we'll take our time with it, and if we get to the end and we haven't completed it, do part 2 next week.
It may happen, yeah.
So
I had some questions for Jordan, because I know he does a lot of spraying, and so there's some stuff I don't know what the hell's what. So
I've just remembered I have to go. So
okay,
have a good afternoon,
guys. So yeah, I mean, this is obviously a huge topic, and starting at one point is going to be pretty tricky. So what I thought we could do to start is, I'm sure each of us have a favorite finishing method. So, and I know that's obviously dependent on what you are finishing, but if you were to say like any way of finishing, this is the way I would do it. Joey, what would be your best way to finish something?
Yeah, that's tough. I would say at the moment probably a wipe on polyurethane, and my favorite at the moment is Minwax, and it's just beautiful right out of the can. And that's what I did on my dining table, and I've done it on a couple of tables now, and just essentially rag it on and wipe it off, and she's finished in 4 or 5 coats. So
now, I thought you liked the water-based stuff, or is that just practicality more than anything?
I like water-based stuff. It's great for speed. It's great for durability, especially the stuff that I'm using. I'm using Cabot's CFP floor, which is their flooring stuff. But it is difficult to get a very smooth finish on, and it doesn't build. It can be, I find once you get a few coats on it, it almost seems like it's a bit blurry, like it's a bit misty. You're not getting a dead clean representation of the timber underneath it. And so if I'm doing shop fit out stuff, or just rustic style stuff, I mean, you can just throw water-based stuff on it all day long and it's going to look mint. But if you're doing like that high end, the extension table I did a while back, and I want
some really cool figure or something like that.
Yeah, and I want a glass smooth finish. The best way for me to do that is some kind of wipe on polyurethane where there's lots of thinners in it, which means it's going to evaporate, or maybe if I get into it, it's not actually evaporating, but if it will dry quicker with more thinners in it. So
okay,
I would say that's probably where I'm at the moment.
Do you just really quickly? Do you get really consistent results with the wipe on Minwax?
At the moment, yes. It does depend on coats. I mean, with my own stuff, I tend to be pretty rushed and don't get as many coats on as I'd like.
Right.
With customer stuff, it's dead. It's nigh on perfect. I would say it's as good as a spray finish.
Yeah. No, I just asked because I used to use the same for probably 2 years.
Okay.
And it was I had never had an issue. It always came out tops. And then all of a sudden I started getting this splotchy finish. And I don't know if it was the batch I got or if it was me that's changed my technique or anything. But yeah, it was kind of weird. But yeah, good to know that.
I do get the odd where I think I've done a final coat because the coat before was dead smooth, and I'll do one more coat just to make sure.
Yeah.
And it came back in the morning and that one feels rough as guts.
Yeah.
What's happened? And it's just, I don't know what has happened. And so I just rub that back and do another one and it's fine. So
yeah.
It just happens sometimes. But
yeah, I did like it. It was good stuff. So me, mean, I'm in two minds because I don't actually like using lacquer because I don't like the harmful chemical VOCs and all that crap that you get with it. But it's just so easy to use. Like, I mean, once you get your technique down with spraying, it's just the nicest thing to spray. It's quick. You can do 3 coats in a day easily, and that's not a push either. And it melts into itself. So the more layers you apply, it's not like it's applying a layer onto a layer. You're actually building a solid layer of finish. So if you want a high build, you can get a high build and you have no grain popping through at all. Generally, if I want that, I would actually brush on the first layer of lacquer quite thick with no thinners, then sand it, and then start spraying, because that's my version of grain filling instead of having 2 products. But at the same time, you need to have a spray set up for it, because if you're spraying it inside, you're going to get poisoned.
Minor complication.
You're gonna have fun while doing it, but you're gonna have a pretty nasty headache afterwards. And also, like, especially when you're running a business, there's actually regulations against it. You're meant to have storage lockers. You have to have fresh air ventilation, all sorts of stuff for it. I can fly under the radar a little bit, because I'm only one guy here. But when I did have WorkSafe pop through and they saw that I do use these solvent-based finishes, he said, look, that could be a problem if you employ someone.
Right.
And that's where he left it. He understood, it's only me, and if I blow myself up, it's my own fault, sort of thing. But
yeah, that's interesting, because my neighbor is a panel beater, and so they have fairly regular and stringent checks on their spray booth.
Yeah,
and all they have to do is walk in my door and say, you're spraying things and you don't have a spray booth, and you're in a commercial zone and now you're shut down.
Yeah, it can be like that. Now, I don't call my finishing room a spray booth because it's not a spray booth,
right?
But it has got ventilation outside and it has got a vent in, so it does have that circulation, but it isn't a booth. And when I've only had them come by once, but if they do come by, then I just explain to them that, I never use this and I now use this, which is not always true. But
because I guess the problem is not only you, it's the neighbors in the area.
That's right. So
it's just going out to everyone,
There's a stench. Like, you're meant to have as well, I can't remember the exact height, but for your outside vent, it has to be a specific height from your roof line, so that when the vapors are out there, it can't drift down and in or whatever.
I imagine it would be the same as a chimney stack, where it has to be, I think here it's got to be something like 1 meter over the ridge line of the house, so it doesn't get trapped in the dead air if there's no wind.
That sounds familiar. So
something like that.
There's complications to it, but because I'm only my own guy, it's fine.
So, question then.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this or anything, but so I always see when I get things priced for spraying, especially with clears, there's always the option of pre-catalyzed or catalyzed or single pot. So do you know what they're talking about and what the difference is really?
I don't know what the difference is so much. I use Sherwin-Williams catalyzed, so I have to add the catalyst 10%.
Right.
I have used pre-cat lacquer, and I can't tell any difference with the finished product, with hardness or how it sprays or anything.
Does it have a different shelf life, do you think, if it's pre-catalyzed, or is it just nothing? I mean, it's just... I'm
not sure about shelf life. When the sales rep came through for Sherwin-Williams, or whatever they're called here, I think they're called something 21, I spoke to him back and forth about what he thinks is the best option for me, and basically when he said that this is what Jar Rock and Jaracorp use on all of their builds, I thought, all right, if people that charge that amount of money can use this on those tables, that's the finish for me, and I kind of sat at that. I do know that, like, for guitars and stuff, they will only use catalyzed. Like, you have to post-cat, so mix your own for some reason, but I don't know why. So, yeah, no, I can't tell you the difference between it all, unfortunately.
All right, fine.
But
That's
It
something
works.
for another show then.
Yeah, that's some Google homework.
Yeah. That video that you put out not too long ago, Jordan, of how you do the spray.
Yeah,
Geez, it looks easy.
it is once you get used to it.
Yeah, I imagine that's the trick. But when I watched it, I just thought, oh, anyone could do this. But I'm sure there's more to it than just that.
Yeah, there's one thing which I will say, and that is a good quality gun makes the world of difference. Like I'm not using a $600 spray gun, but I am using about a $150 spray gun, and compare that to a $90 spray gun, and I can't get the results. I can't get the same results. Like there is a big thing to say if you get the best gun that you can at the time, because it does make life easier. Because I think it's like the needle is better, the fan dispersion is better. You can tune it in a lot easier.
And then like the nozzle size.
Yeah, the nozzle size as well. Like generally, the more expensive ones come with a selection of nozzles. So I use 1.8 and 2 millimeter nozzles, and like you can't get the same results with a 1.6 or a 1.4. It's impossible.
But $150 is still. I mean, that's not really a lot of money.
No, it's not.
When it's your entire finishing tool.
That's right.
I have seen guns at 650, 700. So
yeah,
there's obviously something happening there.
It's just not like, don't go to Super Cheap Auto or whatever and get one of those
and get super cheap gun.
Yeah, because they aren't gonna. They're designed for automotive paint for one, which is way thinner.
Yeah.
And they also aren't going to give you very good results. Go to someone that actually sells spray equipment and knows what they're talking about.
So I looked into HVLP systems quite a bit, and I thought everyone on Instagram and YouTube seems to be HVLP everywhere. And
sorry, what's HVLP?
Which is
high
volume, low pressure. And so it's essentially the kits they're selling these days are, instead of having an air compressor, it has a fan, essentially like a vacuum cleaner that's blowing the air through a large pipe, like a vacuum cleaner type pipe.
Really? Is that enough to push the?
Well, they have the better ones have 4 and 5 stage motors in them, and they're actually really good. I know Guy Dunlap from Guy's Workshop uses it, and he gets excellent results. But they're bloody loud, and you might as well just have your air compressor going. So when I saw how loud they are and how essentially it's the same as just running an air compressor, I thought, well, maybe I should just try my compressor again, which I did. Try it for water-based paints, because in the past, in my old workshop, which no one has ever seen, I had a little kind of spray area outside that was all fly netted out. And I used to spray a lot of my bookshelves and stuff and get awesome finishes with water-based paints. But when I tried it in the workshop, I mean, it was just like rain, misty. I couldn't see from one end to the other in about three seconds. I was like, right, that's it.
Which style of gun? Because you can get HVLP. I use HVLP with my compressor, so I run my guns at like 22 psi. So the whole thing to spraying is the lowest possible pressure where you still atomize the thing coming off the nozzle.
Yeah, that's definitely something I need to know more about, and somehow find the time to learn about PSI and how to actually tune it properly, because most of the time I'm just like, all right, full pressure, let's go get paint on.
So you set it to hose-pipe mode.
Yeah, because like when you go full pressure, what happens is that you're drying the particulate before it's hitting the work surface.
Right. Yeah.
So you need that to be wet.
Too much.
Yeah. So you want to be as low pressure as you can. Generally, you open the needle, so like hold the trigger and wind out the needle until it doesn't bottom out anymore, and then just give it one turn in or half a turn in, and then as low pressure as you can on a test piece, and then just keep dialing it up. The one thing I would say, if you're using a compressor though, is make sure you have a good quality air filter regulator with non-oiler. It has to be a dry regulator. Yeah, because if you're relying on your compressor's regulator, you're going to start with high pressure, and then it's going to bottom out. So you have to hold that trigger open for a second before you start hitting the workpiece as well.
Yeah. Speaking of compressors, last week I said that mine blew up, and it did. It seemed like the main drive capacitor went, and so we got a new one. and now it works perfectly, and it sounds like a brand new compressor. Like it's so quiet. And before, like when I had it brand new, say 3 years ago, it just was noisy as all hell right from the get-go. And just by changing out the capacitor, this thing just purrs like a little kitten in the corner. Like you cannot hear it running. It's crazy that they sold it to me already shit.
Is there a real difference in the volume level between good and bad compressors? Because that's one of the reasons why I hardly use mine, is it just makes such a racket. But I don't know if that's just what compressors do.
Well, I have always known them to be loud, obnoxious things. And so I spent probably the better part of $900 on that compressor that I have, and thought, right, this is going to be a nice quiet thing I can have in the shop. And then turned it on. I was like, holy crap, this thing is so noisy. I'll just have to put up with it. But it turns out it was just the bloody capacitor. So
the screwdriver ones are super quiet. But I find the biggest thing, at least from my experience, I've gone through probably 5 compressors until I've settled on the one I like, is going from direct drive to belt drive is the biggest quiet factor. Like the belt drive is a lot quieter than the direct drive. It's still noisy, like it's still annoying as anything, but it's more tolerable. And then you go into the world of screwdrive, and it's like $6,000 for a small compressor which doesn't have the same capacity as your current one, and it's like, no way.
Okay, there was a bit of a detour.
Yeah, we're talking about finishing today, guys, I promise. So I've always been wipe on poly. Only because that was the first one that I've used. I've tried water-based and never had good results up until the one episode where we talked, Joey, about your first coat is so amazingly important with water-based, because if you have a little drop on the piece, you're stuffed. So ever since then, I've managed to improve it, but still, wipe-on's always been it. There's a couple of times that I've really spent a lot of time finishing, and I've liked my oil, just a normal oil finish. But yeah, wipe-on, you can get the best. Well, I find the easiest way to get the best results.
Yeah. Okay, so I was doing. So when we talked about this topic, I started thinking about, so these things have always confused me a bit. Like I've always kind of known what shellac is, and I've always kind of known what varnish is. But then if you try and define the difference between a varnish, what is a varnish compared to a shellac, compared to an oil, what are these things? And so before the show, I was thinking, like, I better do a little bit of checking to make sure what I say is correct. And I learned a few things. So if you're keen to know, I think maybe this leads on down the track. So I think it was a good place to kind of go back to basics a little bit about what we're actually talking about. And then everything from there builds. So if you're interested, people, grab a pen and paper, because I have some interesting things, I think. So all finishes really are derived from 3 things. You need a drying oil, and we will all know what they are. They are linseed oil and tung oil and walnut oil, which I don't know so much about. I guess it's popular in the States.
This is a drying oil?
Yeah. So those are the 3 main drying oils that seem to be the ones that are used for wood finishing. So it's naturally drying. And what that actually means, if I refer to my notes somewhere, is that it's not actually drying, in that if you have something like a lacquer, it dries by the solvent evaporating, or water-based paint dries by the water evaporating and drying out the paint. The oil dries, or feels dry, by polymerizing, and it has cross-linking dudettes.
This is as far as I've read, and then my brain just turns to mush.
So that's the main. That's the main part that is important here, is that it's actually forming a film rather than just drying and kind of soaking into the timber like water would. It's actually joining it together to create a barrier, and that's what. So that's what the important difference is. So
So before you go on, so I guess then it's a real balancing act then, because you want it to dry at a certain rate because you want some of it to soak in and then create the film, instead of just putting it on and instantly. I mean, it can't instantly dry, but and then you don't get any adhesion to the surface. So you can't. That's a bit of a balancing. Oh, I imagine it would be a balancing act then.
So yeah, because I've always struggled to define what a varnish is, and so essentially what I'm talking about are the 3 ingredients to varnish. So the first thing is a drying oil. The second thing you need is a resin, and that is some kind of organic compound. It's either what most popular is a pine resin, or what they call rosin, or shellac, or karri gum, amber, tree amber, essentially just gum that leaks out of a tree. So you need that resin, and then you need a solvent, which typically is turpentine, which is an interesting story in itself, because turpentine is a distillation of resin from the turpentine tree.
just to add some confusion, just to make it tricky.
These days, what we call mineral terps or terps is actually petroleum based, and it's completely different from chemically different from turpentine, but they call it terps here.
Just a quick side note: if you look for Spirit of Terps, that's the real pine based.
Okay.
In Australia, anyway. I don't know if it's the same in New Zealand, but.
Yeah, I've never seen it actually. We only seem to just get terps.
Yeah. I managed to pick up a 20-liter tub, but that's the first and last time I've seen it.
And does it work like normal terps?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, it dries a lot faster.
Does it break down your finishes, like your polys and that type of thing?
I've been using it too, and it works. So I assume so.
So if you get those 3 things, mix them together in various amounts, you're going to have yourself a varnish. And so that is the basic, and that has been around for at least 2,000 years. So that's your basic standard of what we're doing. And I don't know if you want to start talking about shellac, but shellac is basically a resin, which is one of those 3 ingredients.
So before we do, you've said that that's a varnish. So is that then to say that a varnish is just a generalized term for something that you put onto wood, or is because I've always thought that a varnish had a specific ingredient which made it? Because when I go to Bunnings and I go to this finishing, there's wipe on poly, and then there's varnish. And
I don't think anything these days labeled varnish is going to be like traditionally those 3 things. I think it's just a man-made petroleum-based polyurethane, and they're just calling it varnish because Joe Woodworker down the road doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, or actually what he wants. The good thing with this is you could make it yourself, especially if George has got a supplier of real turpentine. I mean, you can buy the shellac resin, you can buy linseed oil, and you can buy turpentine. You can make your own shellac. You can make your own varnish, which actually seems like a really cool thing to try and do.
And if you go to like ballet suppliers, you can get 10 kilos of rosin at a time, and there's your main hardening agent. So,
and that is the number one. That rosin is the number one thing for making varnish. Is a pine resin. So,
what a cool thing to add to your here's my table. Here's my stance line, and it's been finished in a traditional method. Like that could be pretty.
Only thing that would make me feel a little bit iffy about making your own varnish from scratch is if that client comes to you 5 years later and wants the same finish, and then you think, oh, okay, well, these are the same ratios, but it looks entirely different because.
But that's where you say, well, this is why I cost so much, because you're getting a custom handmade artisan finish. I mean,
no finish is the same.
Yeah,
it's all unique.
I reckon you could bottle it and sell it for gazillions. Artisan varnish.
You can call it George's vintage varnish.
Yeah.
Imagine, okay, I don't know if they even have ingredients lists on these things, but imagine if you picked up a bucket of varnish and it only had 3 ingredients on it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get much more natural than that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd get greedy and I'd start filling it with other stuff. Make profit margins go up. 90% water. Just use the 10% skim layer.
Before we move off the turpentine or the ingredients, I have a bottle of water-based terps.
Oh, right.
I've never used it. But.
It's rubbish. Don't waste of time. But it was when I bought it, I was just like, that's witchcraft. How can you make a water-based terps? But I guess that sort of ties in with what you're saying, because turpentine isn't necessarily oil-based. It just needs something to hold that whatever it was, the pine.
Well, it must be the same thing that we get water-based enamels now, because I still don't know how that works.
Well, the drying agent is water, and not, and so water is going to evaporate. But to me, I don't know how it goes so fast, because you would think a water-based finish wouldn't dry that fast, but it dries like in half an hour. It's done.
Yeah.
So So the reason I went down that whole big thing is because I think everything else we might end up talking about kind of relates back to these basic ingredients, or the basic formula of like three. You need these three things to make something, to make a finish harden up. Especially if we're going to start talking about shellac, although we're getting late in the podcast already.
We're not going to be able to touch on that today.
I think shellac's a whole different podcast we'll do next week.
I demand that we talk about shellac.
Leroy just made a comment that he's looking forward to episode 17 when we've, when we start getting into the real stuff.
We get into the nitty gritty. Yeah, that's right.
So I wonder if those are the three base ingredients. What this so Rubio Monaco, we mentioned it a few episodes ago that I got my hands on some. That's a linseed based oil, but I think it's linseed.
Yeah.
But it's got some super weird agents in it that make it rock hard. So I wonder if it's just different ratios that they're using, and then
they must be, but that is essentially an epoxy. Like you're putting a catalyst in there.
Yeah, there is a hardener.
So it's like an oil. Like when I say oil based, I mean a natural oil based epoxy almost.
Yeah, I mean it's awesome to use. It's just so expensive. I wonder what it is.
It's interesting that. Yeah, I didn't realize it was because does it smell like a linseed type thing?
Yeah, and they advertise that it's linseed based, but everything else seems to be kind of hush hush about it.
Okay,
but you do wonder how much marketing there is that goes along with it, because as you say, Joey, there's for 2,000 years there have been three ingredients. The chances of us living in an era where someone makes up this magic new chemical compound is pretty low. So you would assume then that it's just slight variations that are going to change your world, but they're not really going to.
Well, it's like, sorry, Danish oil. Now that we know what varnish is, Danish oil is just a bunch of linseed oil, a bunch of tung oil, and a third varnish, which has those things in it already. Which is even weirder. But what they want from the varnish is the turpentine, or the thinners part of it, which is going to help dry out the oils better. And so I think a lot of people have a misconception that Danish oil is somehow natural or really natural. Well, it is to a point. You got your two oils, but you've also, especially these days, where turpentine is manufactured, and it's actually not terps, it's more like fully commercial thinners.
Basically kerosene.
Yeah, I mean, it's not nice stuff to smell, that stuff, and teak oil as well. I mean, that stuff is just about jet fuel. I mean, that stuff is not natural, but it does the job.
Give it a natural name, and everyone goes gangbusters. Yeah,
and I think that's also the problem with generic names like varnish. People say, "Oh, just get some varnish," but what is it that you're getting? You need to ask a few more questions if you have the tendencies to want to know, I suppose.
And then talking about the how natural it is, then that would, I guess, make sense why for things like cutting boards there are specific finishes that you use, because you would want it to be walnut oil, linseed, well, I'm not saying you do use linseed oil, but you would go for the walnut oil, linseed oil. What was the third one?
Tongue oil.
Tongue oil. You'd want it to be one of those three.
Or just olive oil or something that is...
not olive because it does fester, but yeah, non-festering oils with no VOCs. So mineral oils, flaxseed oil is a good one. I think grapeseed is one. Yeah. But yeah, you go for the ones with no additives. And
you guys can get citrus oil or something.
Yeah, we got orange oil and citrus oils are cool. It's pretty expensive, but it works nicely.
Huh. Do you not get it, Joey?
I've never seen it. No, we can buy like a chopping board oil, which seems to me like it's not oil. The one I've used seems like it's a man-made thing anyway. So
is it that milky one?
Yeah,
it's kind of milky yellow.
Yeah.
I've used that. I don't know what's in it. I don't question it.
So you guys were talking about Danish oil, and Rob's just asked an interesting question there. What are the ingredients in Danish oil?
Well, it's all the companies have got different ratios, but it's essentially linseed, tongue oil, and varnish.
Right. So Rob's just asked,
or thinner. Yeah.
How come Danish oil smells so good and linseed oil smells so bad? So maybe then it's just the linseed oil aspect. Is less, so that's why.
And the thinners that they use are generally the real turpentine. So this is if I go out and opened up my 20-liter bucket of spirit turpentine, my entire workshop just smells like Danish oil.
Right.
And it's that thinner that they're using.
I've never used Danish oil. Is it? So are you saying then that
it's kind of like a white one?
It's like water. It's very thin.
And then, so you're saying that if I go to the hardware store and buy a tin of Danish oil, I'm most likely getting the traditional turpentine, not
I can't speak for every brand, but I use organ oil or something it's called, or it's along those lines. And that brand, it would.
That's interesting. I use mainly Brywax because I like what it does, but there's no way in hell that is natural turpentine. I mean, that stuff is rocket fuel straight up. Because I was surprised that Rob said he liked the smell of it, because you do not want to put your head in a can of the Brywax stuff because it will just melt your nostrils.
It reminds me of something, but I can't remember what. That's probably a bad sign.
I think in general I like the smell of Danish oil, but I can't get that close to it because it stinks. So.
The thing I don't like about the Danish oil is how long the smell sticks around on you. Like some ungloved hand or something, and you just smell like it for ages.
When I think of linseed oil, and someone mentioned it in the chat as well, I just think of cricket. Putting linseed oil on the bats.
I thought that was grapeseed oil that you put on cricket bats. Maybe I'm thinking a different sport.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. Rob's also mentioned boiled linseed oil.
Oh, God.
You know about that, Joey?
That's a different kettle of fish.
I should have researched it. I used to know the difference.
We're clearly going to be doing this next week, so
we'll do it next week.
Set some homework.
What does it do? I think I'll say what I think it is at the moment is that essentially boiled linseed oil has got thinners in it. It's got nothing to do with being boiled. They put some kind of turpentine drying agent in there to help it speed it up. Anyone who's used raw linseed oil knows that it takes 3 weeks to dry.
I made that mistake when I started.
Like true raw linseed oil, though, like not the stuff you get at Bunnings, but the real stuff. It's like thick maple syrup.
Yeah, it's very thick, and that's the raw stuff. And the boiled stuff is very thin and usually quite dark, amberish. And will dry in only a day or two rather than 3 weeks. So I think that's what it is that it contains thinners, and the boiling of it means nothing. It has not been boiled.
Like everyone has those stories about, if you use linseed oil, don't leave the rag out because it's going to catch on fire. And, everyone goes, it's bullshit. This year alone, 2 people I know have had it happen to them.
Yeah, didn't we talk about this in Queensland when we got together?
Probably did. Yeah,
someone was saying, because I thought it was BS as well.
Yeah, it's great.
Right.
All right.
We'll have to call it there, I guess, and then we'll do part 2 next week.
Wow, we didn't even touch the surface. We just saw the surface over there. And
Leroy is right. It is going to be a 17-episode series.
Yeah. So we'll definitely be doing this again next week. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, then let's move on to what we've been watching. We don't have anything in the description this week. Coming up to the show has been a bit of a crazy one with what's been going on over the week. So, do you guys have anything that you've watched in particular that you want to mention?
I know Joey didn't he?
Yeah. The Measuring Up podcast, not so much watching, but listening. Couple of British guys, Peter Millard from the 10-Minute Workshop on YouTube and Andy McLean from the Gosforth Handyman on YouTube. It's just the two of them, and they sit and chat. It's really informal, and they're way better than George and I at just talking.
You guys,
come
you
on,
guys
we
are
did
so
all right.
way too rough on yourselves. Last week was great.
It's a pretty new podcast, and I somehow it popped up on my feed, and I listened to it, and then suddenly they're shouting me out on the podcast. So I was like, oh, I'll listen to this a bit more. But yeah, really good guys, and interesting to get like a British perspective on stuff. A lot of it, you're like, okay, yeah, that's what I do, or that makes sense. And other stuff, you're like, oh, I haven't had to think about that because I don't have that. I don't live in Britain, so it's a completely different, the whole EU thing and all that privacy stuff that's happening at the moment with their websites. It seems to be causing a lot of problem with small businesses because there's no information for them. So interesting stuff, and it's definitely worth a listen to. So
Cool.
go check them out.
That's pretty cool. I have got one. It's not related to woodworking, but it is making because it is cooking, and he makes things. But his channel's name is Alex French Guy Cooking.
Oh my God.
He is a French guy called Alex. And he
I just started watching this guy, randomly is.
So I got put onto it through, you guys probably know this old Tony. I think I've just him a few times now. But he fixed one of his pasta machines, and he is just crazy French man doing crazy experiments. Well, not even crazy, but like really getting into the nitty gritty of food. And I just haven't been able to stop watching. Like everything he cooks has bread or flour or like pure gluten. And as a celiac, it makes me very hungry, but also very jealous that I can't eat any of this amazing food. But it's like, I don't know. It should be a TV series. It shouldn't just be on YouTube.
He's so good, that guy?
Yeah. And as far as I can tell, it's just him, and his camera work and everything is just phenomenal. Yeah. So check him out if you have any interest in cooking at all.
But even if you don't, yeah. Just like I like to cook, but I'm not like that big into cooking. But I just watched his omelet video like 3 times, and then I watched another follow-up video on his omelet, and I was like, this is awesome.
I think I watched like a 6-part series of him making ramen noodles.
Yeah, and it just goes on.
It's insane, but it's just so
enjoyable. He does the maths. I don't know. He's got some education on him because he does like the equations of what it all means, and he breaks down the physics of it, and you're just like, what is going on here?
And even things like he's putting out spreadsheets to get the perfect pasta recipe or perfect pizza dough and all sorts of stuff. And then he goes to Italy to visit these like world famous pizzerias and gets judged on his pizza making skills. And it's like, it's awesome. Check it out if you want.
Cool. All right. Well, then if we're stretching a little bit further away from making, but still sticking with filmmaking, this week I've been watching a lot of Nerd Writer. It's a fairly big channel. He did a video with Casey Neistat this week, which is where I got onto it. I've watched a few episodes in the past, but I've been binging quite a bit recently. Just very cool deconstruction of films and pacing and editing. And I think, we do a lot of what we do is filming. And I think a lot of what he has to say is interesting. On this recent video with Casey Neistat, he talks about how much time he takes just to decide where he's going to make a cut in an edit.
Oh, really?
Down to like the millisecond to make sure that the pacing of the video is right or feels right. And I know, right? So I was looking at this, watching him going, I do not spend that amount of time on making a video, but maybe we need to.
Maybe we need to.
That's how you get a really good video.
What's his name? Sorry, I missed it.
Nerd Writer. One
Nerd.
word.
Right. I'm good. I'm doing it now.
Well, that's crazy. Yeah, maybe I often wonder after I just edited the Lego box video this afternoon and released it, and I'm like, that only took me like an hour and a half. So maybe I should go back and make it better somehow.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's just making some wood stuff. Like, I'm not in the business of making like full feature things here. But, yeah.
In the last, probably the last 3 or 4 videos that I've done have been real. Chuck up the camera, push record, and off you go. And there's nothing to it.
Oh.
And I've missed creating a film. You know, where there's music and there's pacing and there's a story and an arc and all of that. And yeah, so I think when I finally get back into doing some filming and some,
that's interesting.
So
I'm going to go back to that because I miss. Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I have the same feeling, and that's kind of what has been bugging me with, like, that's what another contributing factor to starting George's Woodshop up again with a different name is just so it's weekend videos where I am not under the gun to get anything done. And if it takes 3 weeks for me to get that video filmed, then it takes 3 weeks, but I can really put the effort into it.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, everyone. Well, it's good to be back. Thanks to everyone in the chat. It was good seeing everyone and what everyone had to say. It was really cool. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, if it was via YouTube or iTunes. Joey, Jordan, anything else you want to add before we call it a night?
No, just keep making.
Yeah, go do some homework on finishing.
Yeah. I got to do that now. I'm actually inspired to learn more. Yeah. Thank you, Joey.
That's right.
Cool. All right, everyone. Have a very good weekend, and we'll see you again next week.
Gotcha.